If we can start with number 8, is that your own decision, or was there a request for you to play Marcel at number 8?
No. It's I suppose Marku coming in at 6 makes it the logical choice. Jan, he has played number 8 for Ulster. Yeah, so I mean it's a combination. It's like for like. I suppose a little bit similar to Dwayne, in that I'm sure Dwayne could probably play 6 if you really wanted him to as well. So yeah, I mean it's not a request from anybody. I think it's just making sure we got a combination we think can play together.
Jake, I suppose the really interesting selection is Ruan Norkeer at blindside, though. You obviously feel he's got the bulk for blindside flank, but is it also maybe that you're looking for a bit more mobility against the Sharks?
Well, it's I suppose it's also a little bit. He's a very good line-out forward. I think he can play. If he can play in 2 positions, it's better for him as well. He's got incredible work rate. You all know that. People call it an engine. He makes line breaks. He gets around the field. And I think if we can, double him up as a guy who can cover loose forward and lock, which I'm sure he can, it makes so much, more sense for him in terms of his career going forward. If you look at a guy like Peter Steph du Toit, he was a lock, moved across to 7, became the best player in the world. So, yeah, I mean, it's an exciting challenge for Ruan, but I'm sure he'll adapt to it. Especially with 2 Springboks playing at 6 and 8 with him.
Jake, do you think there could be a future for Ruan at 7? And also, what do you think Janku will offer you at lock?
Well, yeah, I do, Ashfaq. I do think that there's a future for Ruan at 7, and Janku has done really well for us when he's played. He's come through the junior ranks. He's won a junior under 21 title, under 20 title last year for us, or under 21s, I think. I was still under 21s, and he's growing. He's trained with us for a long period of time now. He knows the lineouts as well. He's been on the bench a couple of times, and he has started in some big games as well. So hopefully this weekend he's nice and fresh. He hasn't played as much as the other locks, so hopefully he'll get some energy and play well this weekend.
Jake, good morning, and morning other colleagues. Jake, first of all, the choices that you've made on your team, or in your team, all depending, and I use this very cautiously, all depending on how you fare on Saturday night. Is this more or less what you were looking towards if you make it to make the cut and go play the final in Rovigo? And secondly, if you can, if you make it and you go play there, what would you make about the competition of Benetton that by some margin has now been identified as the northern opponents in this final? Thank you.
Yes, Simon. So firstly, I mean, yes, it's much of a muchness. There's some guys still coming back. I mean, I've got a couple of guys we can still bring in. I think it gives me a chance to see Keegan Johannes at 9, who's as I said, trained well with us. Then we've got Clint Swart, who can play 10 and 12. With Cornwall's played lots of rugby. And this week I can use Mornay, so as in Steyn. So next week, Chris Smith and Zach and those guys obviously come into contention. But yeah, much of a muchness in terms of what we're looking at. Lizo was injured against the Lions game. He's coming back, so maybe next week he might be available as well to play against Benetton, if, as you say, we get through. If we don't, we've got to play Western Province in a Currie Cup game. So, I mean, it's also about managing, that you've got to make sure you have got a game next week. It just depends on which opposition we play. And then in terms of Benetton, you can take it any way you want. They're the only team that hasn't lost a game in the Rainbow Cup. They beat Glasgow in the first game, and Glasgow is the only game they lost. They beat Connacht. Connacht beat Munster. So in a lot of ways, they deserve to be in the final. There's us. You can look at, as I said, you can package it any way you want. But if they've beaten teams that have beaten Munster, and as at Connacht, then Munster were the other team, and Glasgow was the other team that were the 3 teams vying for the final. If results had gone different ways, and the teams that, as I said, Connacht beat Munster, who now they will, Benetton beat them, and then they beat Glasgow, who was this other team that was supposedly, as I said, had a chance of making the final.
Jake, can we put you on the spot and just tell us what you think of Marcel Coetzee exclusion from the Springbok squad?
Yeah, you can. I mean, when I say not put me on the spot at all, and at the same time, I think that there's a long season. I listened to Rassie. I chatted to Rassie. It's a long season. The guy has been out for a while. There is, ample cover in that position now. If you look at Marco van Staden and the Dupree brothers and Jasper Wiese and Kwagga Smith and Peter Steph du Toit, Sia Khaleesi. I mean, I think there's, I don't know at the top of my head, but there's many loose forwards in that camp. So I'm sure, to answer your question, Ken, it's not putting me on spot at all. It's he's a good player. I'm sure he'll be in the mix going forward. And you just got to keep playing well for the Bulls. At this point in time, if you look at the Springbok schedule, I think they've got about 12 or 13 test matches, 12 test matches in 14 weeks or 13 in 15 weeks. I mean, the chances are, as you quite see with the provincial sides, guys get injured and with COVID, etc., all the unseen or unforced things that could happen. Who knows? Maybe Marcel will be in, but I don't think it's. I must stress, he's still positive. He's still training. He knows. He's come back with a goal to do well for the Bulls, and he's come back to see if he can get back in the box side. And if it's not now, Ken, I'm sure in the future they'll be tapping on his shoulder.
Ek gepraat van flanke. Ek meen jy het soveel lekker, jy weet diepte vir jouself, jy weet gebou, jy weet oor die afgelope 12 maande, jy weet jy het jou pedigree ouens en dan het jy ouens soos VJ en vir Werner en daai manne deurgebring dat mens amper soort van 'n bietjie vergeet het dat jy 'n ster bababok ook gehad het, jy weet wat moes terugkom van besering af en dinge. So ek voorstel jy seker verheug om nog 'n opsie te hê in Miller.
Ja, Heinz, I mean, hy is nou lanklaas gespeel. Hy het nou 2 games vir Tuks gespeel, 80 minute en redelik goed gedoen. So I mean, hy's nou wedstryd fiks wat goed vir ons is en hy het deurgekom sielkundig om aan daai club games te speel. En soos jy sê, weer uitstekende rugby gespeel, ek sê 3 weke terug of 2 weke terug teen daai Vrystaat-span met in die uitnodigingsspan. So ja, ons het diepte en jy weet manne soos Dwayne en okay, Dwayne miskien omdat hy nou deur van die bokke se plan gaan wees, maar Elrich Lou is 6 weke, miskien 7 weke uit. En as hy terugkom, jy weet, dan het ons nog diepte en ons het Jacques Du Plessis wat ook 7 flank en slot kan speel en hy, jy weet, hy's vandag hierso en hy gaan begin met ons sodra sy vakansie klaar is. So ja, ons is in 'n goeie posisie en ek sien uit om my ander manne soos jy sê, jy weet, ons het Jaco Labuschagne wat kaptein van die juniors was, hy's ook nou net terug. En hy het redelik goed gedoen as 'n junior ook. So ons het ten minste 'n bietjie diepte in daai losvoort kombinasies.
Jack, it's one thing in terms of getting the right mindset for this game to qualify for the final. It's one thing about getting just 1 point, and also another thing you would want to say that you want to win the game anyway. But perhaps a greater motivation would be beating the Sharks at Kings Park. Would you agree with that?
Correct. Ashfaq, I think that's exactly it. I mean, I've coached long enough to know that if you go there, it's like playing 50 over cricket. If you just want to block out and think that you can, bat through the 50 overs, you can't win. The reality is you need to make runs. And it's going to be an exciting game because we also want to score 4 tries. The one way we know we get a point is that we score 4 tries. And that's exciting because it means we're going to go flat out for 4 tries. They're going to go flat out for 4 tries. And once we get 4 tries, then we've got our own destiny in our own hands again. So, and I'm almost sure if we score 4 tries, we'll be close to winning the game as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the fact that we scored 4 tries against them. Yeah, we scored 4 against the Stormers. We scored 5 against the Lions. So we've played in 5 games. We've scored, 4 tries or more in 3 games. So, it'd be a nice opportunity for us to see if we can keep that momentum going.
So, in other words, Jake, you're going to kick your penalties and kick up and unders.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's how you play the Sharks. Isn't that how you play them, Ashfaq? You guys would know.
Jake, is there any clarity about next week? I mean, obviously, if you guys do go through it, and it's an if for both teams, is there clarity what happens in the Currie Cup? I mean, are you comfortable that you can field 2 teams? Yeah,
and what we do is if we go through and we play Currie Cup next week, we got trials at Loftus on Monday evening. We're going to invite every guy that's got togs to come down and train and hopefully get a squad of 23 on the field to play Western Province next week. So, yeah, it's like it's exciting times here at the Bulls.
Jake, morning. Have there been any confirmation about the extension of the squad to 50 and the permission to use your club players?
Yes, cool. So, I mean, I'm sure you would have heard that. I mean, what I know is that what I read and what I heard from my CEO, there has been confirmation that you can have 50 players on a loan basis up until November, which is when obviously I suppose the Rainbow Cup and the Curry Cup, the Curry Cup finishes or whatever, around about that time. And you can use an unlimited amount of club players. So that's why I was joking, and some way a bit truthful as well, is we need to find players, and our club rugby system's quite strong. They play this weekend. There's 3 club games on this weekend. So it'll be like the old days. Your name will go in the newspaper on Monday, and you'll proewe speel maandag aand, bietjie koppe stamp, en oudjies sal daar staan met trenchcoats aan en bietjie kyk wie's beskikbaar vir volgende Saterdag.
Any more questions?
Jake, môre net 'n vinnige woord oor Dwayne.
Ja.
Slegte tydsberekening vir so 'n besering vir iemand wat uitgesien het om teen die Lions te speel.
Ja, maar ek dink nie dis alles verby nie. I mean, ek weet mos hoe werk dit. Jy weet, daar's Jesse Creel, daai man, ek praat nou met ons kondisioneringscoaches, ons mediese staf. As baie spelers wat daai operasie kry en dan speel hulle 7 weke later, en as jy somme uitwerk, ek het gewerk, miskien die 24ste is die eerste toets. Jy weet, miskien sal hy nie 100% heeltemal reg wees nie, maar miskien kan hy die tweede en die derde toets speel, jy weet. So ek dink nie is alles verlore nie. Dit sal lekker gewees het as hy al 3 toetse kon gespeel het. Maar soos ek sê, jy weet, ek dink as hy ten minste 1 of 2 van daai toetse kan speel, en wie weet, miskien is dit die laaste toets en is die een wat ons moet wen, en weet dis 1 elk, en hy druk die wen 3, en dan jy weet, dan is die skrip ook baie lekker vir hom, net soos hy was in die man of the match in die Wêreldbeker final. So ja, ek het met hom gepraat. Hy's jy weet, hy's positief. I mean, hy's 'n mentally baie tough mens, en wie weet, miskien jy weet, daai tipe spelers meng of herstel baie vinniger as ander. Ek onthou Skalk Burger dieselfde. Jy weet, daai tipe speler wat mentally tough is, jy weet, vat baie minder tyd om weer op die veld te kom. So ek is vol lof dat en vertroue dat hy sal alright wees.
Jake, where do you think the biggest challenge will come from the Sharks?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think they're a good side. I mean, we all know they're a good side. They've been the one side that have pushed us. They played the Curry Cup final here, Ashfaq. Yeah, I mean, they're a solid team. They play a certain style of rugby, that suits them. And I think they're going to be motivated, knowing they need to beat us. Not only just beat us, they need to comfortably beat us. Whether it's 4 tries and lots of points, or whether it's 5 tries and stopping us from scoring. So it's going to be, one of those games where, not where I think they'll be a threat, is I think any team that's got that desire is going to play a bit differently. But with that comes opportunities, Ashfaq. If you play a certain style and you need to go away from that style, it comes with risk. And, with risk, obviously both ways, because if it comes off, it works. If it doesn't come off, you can be at the end of a disaster. So, yeah, it's like me telling the players from tomorrow, listen, boys, when we get there on Saturday, we run everything, we try and score 4 tries. It's not going to work either if that's how you've never played and that's how you've never trained. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to having to go out and score 4 tries.
Jake, just on the Sharks as well, and looking at your selection for the weekend, their line-out, I think we saw last week, and in general also quite a strong point of the game, isn't it?
Well, Ken's saying that. I mean, they are, but they also one line-out that loses a lot of possession. If you look at their line-out, they've, whether they've changed their hookers, and they've changed their hookers more than any other team. They had Mabata and they had Richardson, and then they had, I think Dan Jooste played, and then they've chopped and changed. The Kieran van Vieren wasn't available. So, yeah, I suppose, again, the combinations of the hookers changing and also of the locks changing. They had Van der Mesh, then they had Roots, then Roots was not available, then they had Renil, and then they had Aaron Andrews. So, yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is that I think that there's been a reason why their line-out at times hasn't functioned, and I think having 3 tall guys like we've got is going to put their line-out under pressure, put their hookers under pressure. That's obviously the thinking. But, I mean, when they do catch it and they do play from lineouts, they're dangerous, So we got to understand that, it's much more to the game than just competing at their lineouts. They might not, to be fair, they might not even kick it out. They might give us the ball and expect us to play.
Jake, and the last time you played them at Kings Park, you lost. What were the main sort of lessons you took out of that game?
Selection. Selection was the most important lesson I learned.
Okay, final question, thank you.
Jake, net gepraat van selection en dinge. Een van die ek wil amper sê een van die understated suksesse, jy weet, van julle Rainbow Cup weer eens was hoe doeltreffend maar amper onder die radar, jy weet, Marco en Connell as 'n senterpaar, jy weet, begin Jallet en dinge, en Marco het self vir die week gesê wat 'n groot invloed, jy weet, en voorreg is dit om onder Connell te speel. So dis 'n tweedelige vraag. Eerstens, hoe voel jy is daai kombinasie besig, jy weet, om jy weet 'n impak te maak, en tweedens is dit ook 'n bietjie 'n veertjie in Connell se hoed, jy weet dat hy twee ouens in Stedman en Marco, jy weet so maklik kan laat gel by hom, jy weet dat dit eintlik sy organiserings, jy weet, vermoë uitlig.
Ja, Heinz, dankie. Ek dink jy het 'n fout gemaak. Hy speel nie onder Connell nie, hy speel saam met Connell. Hy speel langs hom. So ja, ek dink daar's sonder twyfel. Ek dink hy sy rugby het baie verbeter. Ek dink sy linkervoet vir ons is baie bate. Jy weet die feit dat jy kan maar sien ons het 'n opsie om sy linkervoet te gebruik om van ons eie kwartgebied uit te kom. Ek dink die feit dat hy nou saam met Connell speel wat baie praat en baie kommunikeer is 'n baie goeie ding, maar vir my is daai senterkombinasie, Heinz, is presies wat ek sien in rugby vir elke span wat ek afrig en veral vir die bulle ook. Kombinasies is ontsettend belangrik, jy weet. Hulle was nie 'n kombinasie gewees nie, en hoe meer hulle by mekaar speel en langs mekaar speel en mekaar oefen en saam met mekaar oefen, hoe beter verstaan hulle mekaar. En ek dink dis die geheim met goeie spanne. Jy weet, as jy nou 'n span kan uitdraf, en ek het net nou gesê vir Ken, jy weet, as dieselfde slotte spring en dieselfde hakkers gooi en dieselfde vaskop tel op, en jy weet, dan iewes skielik is daai kombinasie sterker en sterker. En ek dink ons is nou op 'n stadium, nie met alles nie en nie met 100% reg nie, maar jy weet, daai jong voorhuis skram week in en week uit in oefening in die game saam of van die bank af, jy weet, en hulle doen redelik goed, en daai senterkombinasie doen redelik goed, en hulle gaan verbeter, jy weet, en hoe meer David Kriel saam met Strevino speel en saam met Medosh speel, gaan daai driehoek ook sterk word. So ja, daar gaan ander spelers wat kan inkom, maar hoe meer diepte ons kan kry en hoe meer kombinasies ons by mekaar kan sit, hoe beter dit gaan wees vir ons vir die toekoms ook. Is nie net vir hierdie Saterdag of volgende week nie. Dis vir die volgende paar jare. So ons kontraktering en ons keerproses en weet om seker te maak die spelers wat inkom kan daai kombinasies verbeter, gaan vir ons baie sterker laat maak in die toekoms.